Hi, I'm and this channel is about rebuilding your financial life after you've made some silly mistakes. In my last video, I talked about how I managed to squander $50,000 on a modest income. And none of what happened to me or what I did came from one huge mistake. It came from lots of little ones. Okay, and some mid-sized ones too. Like, it wasn't all like $5 charges. Like, I made some other mistakes that were of the more mid-sized variety. I didn't question like how I was spending my money at that time. And these are the kind of mistakes that just quietly drain a bank account or increase a credit card debt if you happen to use credit cards, especially when you're on a limited income or a more modest income. You know, I'm sure someone who is making $250,000 a year, these kind of habits would not hurt them financially. But for someone like me who makes a much more modest income, these are things that contributed to me losing that money. So I'm going to go through those habits. You know, these are the habits that got me into trouble. And I have a lot of habits that I could talk about, but I'm going to focus on the four major ones for me. So the first habit that really kind of got me into some trouble was just general convenience spending. So for me, this happened during COVID, or at least it started during COVID. Always before COVID, like, I was perfectly happy to go out and get what I needed, or I would happily wait for shipping. But when we were in lockdown, you know, I started getting groceries delivered for the very first time and paying for that convenience. And I did that first because I had a brand new baby at home, and there was this sense of like, oh, it's convenient and it's safer. But then when we no longer had to be in our homes all the time, I kept on doing it because it was convenient. It was really nice not to have to try and go through a grocery store, especially with a young child. And I'm sure any of you out there who have young children know how exhausting it can be to try and navigate the grocery store with a child who is unhappy, doesn't want to be there, and maybe doesn't listen very carefully, especially once they become a toddler or a preschool child. So it's not so fun, and maybe paying someone else $5 or $10 to deliver your groceries seems like a really good deal. And you know what? If that had been the only habit that I'd had, probably it would not have been the end of the world. But I had a lot of different habits, and I paid for a lot of convenience things outside of just the grocery delivery. So it would be things like paying for overnight shipping when maybe I didn't even need to pay for overnight shipping. Or if I got a pizza, rather than going to pick it up, I would pay for the delivery charge. Suddenly started paying for things like DoorDash, things that I would never have paid for before. I just got used to, isn't this convenient? Isn't this nice? So I had to stop a lot of that convenient spending because, you know, while it might seem like it's only $5 here or $10 there, what ended up working out for me is that I was spending all of these convenience fees that actually I could have bought my groceries for a week with all the money that I was spending. So how did I go about fixing that? Well, for me, I do still want some convenience in my life. And so I had to pick and choose, like, which were the most important things to me. So for me, I realized, hey, you know, paying a delivery fee for my groceries doesn't really make that much sense when I can drive to the store and do pickup instead. And as long as I spend a certain amount of money and I plan ahead, then I won't have that fee. So I kind of made some of those decisions. You know, I still order pizza from time to time. It still gets delivered because to me, that's worth it. So I kind of try and build in some of those convenience fees now into my budget. I don't want to take them all away, but realizing how much that was costing me was really important. So that was the first habit. The next one was kind of subscription fees, and this kind of goes along with those convenience charges. I had so many subscriptions, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Like, there's Netflix, there's Disney Plus, there's Amazon, there is the subscription for maybe if you you have a water softener and you get salt delivered. There's a subscription for that. It seems like everything these days comes along with a subscription. And that's fine. Some of those subscriptions are really valuable. But what I found is that sometimes I would sign up for a free trial of something and then I would get charged and I would never cancel that subscription. When I totaled it up, it was well over $100 of subscriptions that I was paying for. And some of them I wasn't using at all. So for example, I used to have a Fabletics subscription where they charge you like $40 or $50 a month for the subscription. And I wasn't ever purchasing anything from Fabletics. I had all these credits banked up that I wasn't even using because there was generally nothing on that website that I wanted. It was a complete waste of money. The same thing that when I looked at, I had a Peacock subscription and I found like I didn't watch anything on Peacock. So why was I keeping that subscription? So what did I do? I went through every single charge on my credit card to see what was a subscription versus just a regular purchase. And then I prioritized which were the most important to me. So for example, I don't really watch anything on Amazon Prime. So I canceled that subscription. I don't need Amazon Prime in my life. And actually it helped with some other shopping challenges that I had as well by canceling that. And I also found that you can get free shipping on Amazon Prime on Amazon as long as you spend $35 or more. So I just had to be more careful about how I planned certain spending on that platform. And I canceled some other things, but I kept some things. Like I kept Netflix. I watch a ton of Netflix, totally worth the money for me. The same with Disney Plus. I have a kid who watches a ton of Disney shows. So to me, those two things are really worth it. And I managed to cut my subscription costs by 3/4, so by 75%, simply by prioritizing what I was actually using and what I really wasn't. So the next habit, and it's really two habits in one, and this is kind of double spending and just emotional spending in general. So, sometimes I would just be really tired and I want a pick-me-up. So I would buy something because it would make me feel good. It'd give me the rush of, oh, I'm going to get something fun in the mail. And then I would return things because I would, think, why on earth did I purchase that? But then when I returned something, I'd say, oh, I just returned something that's $30. I have this money now that I can now spend. And so oftentimes I would spend that $30 like 2 or sometimes even 3 times, because in the back of my mind, I'd be like, oh, I returned that thing, so now I have this extra money, when really I never had the extra money to start with. I also found that I do a lot of late night shopping, especially when my child was really young. Those years when they're getting up in the middle of the night and you're up with them, I'd start scrolling and make a ton of impulse purchases. So how did I fix that? Well, that's still a work in progress. I still make impulse purchases and I still do some emotional spending. But one of the things that I have tried to do is to give myself a budget and allow myself to purchase things within a certain amount. The other thing is I've started keeping I want this book. So every time I see something that I think I really want, I write it down in a book and I have to wait for at least 24 hours before I purchase it. And if I find something that's on sale and it's a really good deal, because that was one of my emotional triggers, is I want a bargain. Unless it has been something that is already in my book, I want this book, I can't purchase it. Because, if I didn't want it before, why do I want it when it's just on sale? So I'm kind of using all those tricks to kind of help me manage my emotional spending. But I will tell you, it is not perfect, and it's definitely something I'm still working on. And then finally, my fourth habit is just reducing my social media consumption, especially around spending. So I have some triggers, like I really like to buy clothes. And clothes, not just for me, but for my kiddo as well. I love all those fashion channels. I love Instagram and Pinterest and a lot of those things. I have had to reduce how much I'm consuming because I found that I would watch all of these hauls and see all these cute things that I hadn't even considered purchasing. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, I want that. And then I would have a long list of things sitting in my cart that I would one night feeling impulsive, or I had a really bad day and I want to treat myself, I would go and purchase one of those items, an item that I didn't necessarily even want. If any of those habits sound familiar to you, you are not bad with money. You just don't have a good strategy. And that's really what I came to the conclusion about. It's not that I was bad with my money or that I am bad with my money. It's just that I don't have good strategies, or at least I didn't have good strategies in place to help manage that. So, if I'm stressed, if I'm having a really bad day, if time is really a big constraint for me, those are the triggers for me when I'm going to spend more money. So if you're interested in more content like this and you are interested in seeing me rebuild my finances, then follow along, subscribe. Tell me in the comments, which habit do you resonate with? Like what kind of bad habit do you have around money? I'd love to hear more about the things that you're struggling with too. Thanks. Bye.